Good evening, and welcome to the Caring View, the online health and social care platform free to access to absolutely everybody. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like, give us a subscribe on the platforms that you are watching on, and go to www.thecaringview.co.uk for all of our free resources, podcast episodes, about our sponsors, our suppliers. Everything you possibly could want from us is free on our website. Our website is powered by Jack AI, one of our fabulous sponsors. And it is only because of our sponsors that we can do this and provide you the resources that you get for free each and every week. So without further ado, we have Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency, www.prosperwell.co.uk. You can catch this back up on catch up on YouTube or visit our website if you miss any of these websites. We have CBAT, Care Business Associate Training, for all of your healthcare training requirements. I advocate these guys a lot. They are great. Their CHAPS training is phenomenal. Their training courses are great. So please do go check them out. We have Attis Insurance Brokers, Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers, for all of your comprehensive care coverage and proactive risk management. I know, boring, but we need it. And they are more than just your brokers. They are a helpful voice on the other end of the line. We've got Log My Care, the care management platform loved by complex care providers all around the country, and they do offer a freemium version. So please do go check them out, especially if you're just sort of dabbling into digital social care systems now, or you're wanting to swap over and you want to try something new. Fully recommend. Also, if you are a multi-site provider and you provide different types of services, this is something I think we all think about. We have to use the same software for each service that we use. Not all softwares are adapted for all services. So, it might be one digital social care platform system you use is not suitable for learning disability environments. Log My Care is. Give them a try. Don't be afraid to mix and match your softwares throughout your group. We have health automated online and in learningment online, AI-powered softwares, AI-powered care planning, AI-powered training. So go check them out. And we have Florence, directly connecting healthcare professionals and organizations with shifts and training around the country. Great alternative to agencies. And last but not least, we have the fabulous, the wonderful, the amazing, everybody should be using it, Every Step Care Consultancy, transforming care services with tailored consultancy, turnaround management, compliance, and coaching. If you've got any questions around any of our sponsors, don't be afraid to get in touch or get in touch with them directly. And if you've got any questions for Every Step, ask them tonight because they are joining us. Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Nicola. How are you both?
Good evening. Very well, thank you.
I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm struggling with my mouse at the minute. No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm peppy. I'm all set up for autumn now. I've just finished off my Halloween decorations yesterday outside, and it all looks fabulous. So, yeah, I'm absolutely amazing. However, and I am going to say this on air because why not? And I want to bring awareness to it. I experienced homophobia yesterday, which I just could not get over. In a car park in Polton, and some guy nearly drove into my car because he wasn't looking where he was going. And don't get me wrong, I was wearing my pink leather jacket. I was living my Rizzo Grease Pink Ladies fantasy with it, and I looked fabulous. And he ran down the window and said, "Watch where you going, you effing puff." Sorry for the trigger if anyone got triggered by that. And I'm like, seriously? It's like 2025. What's going on right now? I was like, this is technically a hate crime. I could be one of those people that just like phone the police on you. I took a picture of his van though, with him stood in front of it like a marketing advert because he had all his business along the side of it. I was like, I might Instagram you later on. I might Instagram you. He's like, oh, you do that. But yeah, no. The world, hey, isn't it a fabulous place to be right now? Tonight, I'm struggling with my mouse. We are discussing the common CQC inspection mistakes and how to fix them. If you are watching this and you are a regulated provider, this is a must for you. And we do have our expert here, Nicola Holmes, to help talk us through these common pitfalls. So, Nicola, long-term friend of the Caring View. It seems many, many moons ago since we first met at was it the Devere we first met at a care provider event?
We were. I think I was on the. Yeah, I think it was at the Nights then. So yeah, could have moved on from there. We had an amazing idea of how to do something. I think we just talked all the way through it.
incredible. I mean, it must be what 7 years ago now that we've been on this journey together, and it's absolutely fabulous to see where you've come from and where you're going and where you're currently at now. But for those unlucky people who don't know you, Nicola, tell us a bit about yourself. What is Every Step Care? And yeah, floor's yours.
Oh, thank you. So Every Step Care is founded by myself, Nicola Holmes. I am an experienced registered manager, and I have as worked in the Northwest region, mainly Blackpool, and have a particular skill set for turnaround management. It didn't just sort of happen, so I sort of fell into that. And I started Every Step 3 years ago. And with that, then I worked alongside, I subcontract again with other organisations. I do work for my own clients, and we go into care services and help support them mainly in, I tend to do crisis management. So for like last year, I worked for a provider that were on phase of closure. So I supported 2 care homes that were inadequate. And we got them back to where they needed to be. So one home went to good, and the other home went to requires improvement. And the other home that was in requires improvement actually went to good. They got inspected earlier this year, so it was excellent news. So my current rating is like 100% for turnaround management. So I have, with no people work with you, you can get to where you need to be. And so one of the things what we thought we could talk about tonight is because of my experience with turnaround, I'm trying to sort of hit sort of providers, sort of work with providers and just do like, this is what we need to be looking at. These are the pitfalls that we see on a regular basis as I'm working with providers. And sometimes people go, yeah, but I know about that. I said, well, you know about it. Why is it not being picked up? And there's so many other ways. And, your auditing tools that people thought, I've got a suite of audits now. This is them done. But actually, if something happens in your service and it's been missed, or a CQC have picked it up, or you've had a PAMS visit, or a whistleblowing's happened, you need to have a look at that. Could we have picked that up sooner? Is that question actually on your audit? Like, are you actually thinking, how could I have picked this up sooner? Sometimes we can't pick it up, but we need to think like our audits are actually a live document, and they are subject to change, and they will change. And buying in suites of audits will work, but they have to be changed. They have to be changed to your service. Each local authority is completely different. Some, I think, Lancashire County Council don't want to know about unexplained bruising, but if you go to Blackpool Council, they do want to know about unexplained bruising. So each local authority is slightly different. So if you've got a big, a group of homes in different local authorities, they're all going to have, the audits themselves are also going to have to change along with your policies that you get. So tonight I just wanted to sort of, it's one of the things that I did some homes recently, and just one of these things that, it doesn't matter if they're a large luxury home or if they're, a small social care funded home, there's the same issues that I come across time and time again. So hopefully people will learn something today and maybe have a little think about what they can say.
And that's, it really is the sort of unfairness of social care, isn't it? Where you could be a multi-site 50-bed provider, or you could be a single home with 16 beds, and the expectations are still the same. The regulations don't change. The expectations are the same, and it's unfortunate, but we've still got to do everything we possibly can do to meet those regs.
It's quite, it's easily done. Sometimes it's that follow up as well. So like everyone, so we're gonna back. So the first thing is like creams. So like creams and TMARs are the bane of every single service's life. Like everyone's like sometimes the care staff are not consistently signing them. They're not being found, and it's the same. It's the same for every organisation I go to. And then people have tried digital. Some people have gone back to paper, gone back to digital. They're trying to find different ways and make sure these TMARs are being signed, the cream's being allocated. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. But it's having that oversight over the time. So if you've got an up-to-date action plan and it's saying, but this is what we found in this audit, this is what we've done, we've spoken to the staff and saying we've done this, we can see that you've got that oversight and you actually are continuously looking of what you're trying to do to make the service safe. So one of the things I commonly found for creams, now creams actually come under safe care and treatment. So it comes under Reg 12, and then you've got premises and equipment, which comes under Reg 15. So one of the things I'm doing my walk around or doing a tour of the building, I will, obviously with consent, I always make sure the consent, go and check some of the residents' bedrooms. So in the bedrooms, I'll find creams. Now, more than likely, I'll find a big tub of cream. and no date opened, and the name's faded on it, and I don't know where it's been opened, where it's been. Again, we can't be using it. We don't know who it belongs to. Then following from that cream I've checked, I'll go around to the other. So it has been known, and sometimes when I'm doing this tour, especially it's a larger home, you'll find that the phone will go, and then someone will go and tell someone she's looking here, and I'm like, don't do that. It's like I'm here to find the issues. They want me to find them rather than somebody else going to find them. On other occasions where I find is that people are removing the names because they don't want to, it's a waste. They don't want to waste the cream. So they remove the name from the bottle, or they remove the label from the bottle, but they don't take the whole thing off, or they remove it from the box. I then open the box of medication with the creams being stored in, and I find the name of a resident who's not the resident of the room that the person's staying in. Now that happens a lot. Now people think, oh, it's such a waste. Someone goes, I don't want to throw that away. That's just such a waste. I don't want to do that. And you can see the good intention there, but actually that medication's being prescribed. It's like, but it's a cream, but it's a medication, and it has been prescribed to that individual, and you're now using it somewhere else for somebody else that hasn't been prescribed for. And it's these things that come up, and then you can understand where the staff are coming from, but it's actually just completely not appropriate for that to be happening. After I've checked the creams, so one of the things I'll go and check is then the care plans. So go straight to the risk assessments. Now, surprisingly enough, people don't put in emollient risk assessments in place for residents, and it happens time and time and time again. Now, that when I see that again, you're not managing that risk. There's a flammable risk when that it's not being managed. Then that'll take me to your peeps. I'll go to your peeps. I then follow through. So all I've done, the only action I've done so far is I've gone into someone's room with the cream, and so far I found breaching of medications. I've checked there's no risk assessment in place, and now I found that it's also not included in your peeps, and that's all tied together in one area. And I could have only looked at 3 or 4 bedrooms, and I found this 3, or found a cream that belongs to somebody else in this other person's bedroom. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the creams is a prime example here of pulling on a thread. So for those who don't know, I'm a quality manager, and this is what I do on a daily basis within our services. And I'll look at one thing, and you start pulling a thread, and it unravels, and you find a million things. With the creams, the one thing I would add, and it's something that I check in our service, is how they're being stored as well. So often, especially if you're in a home with people living there with dementia who are able-bodied and can walk around, how can you guarantee that they're not going to walk into a bedroom and take those creams? So it's around having the correct storage in bedrooms. Now, we use coded locked storages for medications in bedrooms so that they've got them. And then they shut the door and then don't lock them. So it's then a case of, right, well, we've got
the next thing.
Yeah, you've got them in place and then they don't get locked. What you're talking about around the emollients is, again, a perfect example of, the emollients are there. There's no risk assessment in place to say that this person's on emollients. There's nothing in the care plans to state they're on emollients. Nothing in the PEEP says this person's a fire risk. My next step would then be, right, show me a general risk assessment for the home which says that laundry in this home has been in contact with emollients and may be highly flammable even after laundering, because you need a risk sign up in your laundry room to say that even though this person does not use emollients, they will be using laundry that has been used for people with emollients, or do you keep them separate? And I know that sounds like an absolute pain, but it's one of those things where it just takes someone who does not use emollients to use a blanket, go out, have a cigarette, and then set themselves on fire. And you've not managed that risk. And again, Nicola, that is just from looking at one thing, and it spreads out. You end up with 3 or 4 breaches, and people are then shocked at. And the thing about CQC, and I don't know whether you're like this yourself, if you're going through and you're checking things and everything's coming across okay and really, really good, you're actually less inclined to pull on threads further because everything starts matching up early on. You think, well, actually, that's okay. So that matches. I'm not going to have to look at that because I'm not even thinking about it because it matches. And that's absolutely fine. These CQC inspectors have a finite time on site, and you want to be able to show them all of the good stuff without giving them worry or concern that nothing's being addressed.
I think it's true. So when you if you when you have like a mock inspection, you only have so for instance, when you've got a person come and do your mock inspections, it varies from contracts to contractors. Some contracts do 2 days on your site, some contracts only do 1 day a site, and then then ask you to send the information separately. Where CQC sometimes have 3 weeks, even 4 weeks for them to gather all that information and to ask more. You haven't got that much oversight to see. So having that thread, and like it is thread. And to be fair, when I go in and do an inspection, if I see like the locked cupboard I was going through, it's like sometimes I find that there's a padlock of a cabinet, or there's a key coded, or there's a key safe at the side where you unlock the key. Now, most of the times I find these all unlocked, or the keys code is not being locked, or I find them unlocked most of the time. And it's finding a better way to do it. I found an organisation that had a cream cupboard, which they stored all the creams in for everybody. But that's great. However, the staff hadn't putting the creams on because they were forgetting to go into the cream cupboard to get the cream to go in, or they were leaving the creams and things. So sometimes it's trying to find something that works better for your service. When I am doing an inspection, because of my background in what I am looking for, I am purposely looking for the problem. I'm trying to find where the issues are.
Yeah.
And there will be, and that's my job, and that's what I've been employed to do. So my role is to go in and find the issues, and I will find them. And I will find something to improve, and I'll find the good stuff as well, and I'll track through, and I'll give feedback where something's really good. Especially sometimes I see some amazing work being completed, and I think, like, so say you're watching a mealtime observation, and I see this interaction with the staff and team, and the staff are really engaging this resident who's like refusing to eat, and I see them like they're swapping chairs, they've offered different alternative meals, they're doing dances, they're doing all these different things to try and encourage this person to, and it was fantastic seeing this. An hour later, I checked the records, refused meals, offered a different option. Nothing, and I was like, I saw this most amazing interaction here, and there was literally, it wasn't documented. So it's not just the breaches I've been looking for. I'm looking for, like, I've watched someone have their meal, or I'm going back and checking when I observed a meal and seeing what someone's eating and how much they have. I'll go back an hour later and see what's actually being recorded, and that's really important as well. So it's not just that, it's only a snapshot sometimes when you going to do these inspections. So with the creams and the lock cupboards, I also, like you touched on that, go back and look at the cream care plan as well, the skin integrity care plan. Does it actually say they're applying it? How often does it need to be applied? And I've listened to you before, Adam, when you've done a session, and I always refer to, like, mention that they apply cream, but try and avoid, if you're not keeping oversight or haven't got the time, especially in the middle of a turn, to put the branding or the type of medication a person's having, just reference that they are having a cream applied onto the skin rather than actually the name and the brand of it itself, because if you miss it or it changes, then your care plan's inaccurate. So it's sometimes, if you haven't got that guaranteed oversight, then it's a bit too risky, especially in the field that I tend to work in. I just tend to say, like, make a reference to the having a blood thinning medication or the having a cream applied to the skin, rather than a full detailed, if you can't guarantee that you can keep that oversight over it, because you're just going to end up breaching, and it's just impossible. It's impossible to do. So so that's the so creams charts is obviously the big thing to do. One of the things I did a blog
just before we move on, sorry to interrupt. Donna's come in the chat and said, does bedding with emollients need separate washing? Now, I'm just going to bring you up to the top, Nicola, so that we can see your lovely face, and I can cover mine, and that's absolutely fine. What would you say on this?
It's impossible. So I think, realistically, if you're a small care home, or a large care home, and let's be honest, at some point in our work, the resident that we care for, they're going to end up on a cream. They're always going to end up on a cream. In some organisations, people have their own preference of bedding, so they'll have them separate. I think they're going to have it on the clothes. So it's not just like, so I suffer with psoriasis. So my clothes, and it's not just my bedding that's covered, it's my clothing, where I'm touching on the chair, that will also be covered. So I think it's really difficult. You could separate it if you could try, but the risk is still going to be there because it's transferred in so many different ways. So when you tumble drying clothes, it's still going to be there anyway. So that makes sense. And sometimes you're bandaging them up. So I think sometimes if someone's wearing pajama pants, they're more likely going to have more of the cream actually on the pajamas than actually on the bed itself.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, isn't it? And yeah, I wouldn't be recommending that you just go and do everyone's laundry separately, but I would have a risk assessment in place to say that, you know, linen in this building has been laundered and may have contained emollients. In an ideal world, you do everyone's laundry separately, and everyone would have their own laundry bag,
Yeah.
and you could do it all separately. And it sounds hard, but it's probably a lot easier than you think. Mark, anything to add on this?
Yeah, I think, having managed large and small care services, I think, and again, it depends on the type of individuals you're supporting. Are you supporting people with a learning disability that change their own bedding and probably do their own laundry, and then they probably do it separate? Or do you have a housekeeper in a large care home that, is going around changing multiple beds, putting all the bedding into a trolley like you would in a hotel, and then probably washing them all together? Or are you sending it off site? So yeah, I think it definitely needs to tie into kind of what the risk assessment says, but also what your policy is stating and your general kind of use. I was scribbling down while I was listening to both of you, just to kind of put into, and there's probably more, just when you were talking about cross references and all the bits and pieces once you start pulling that thread, just from something as simple as this. And I just wrote down, your policies, your risk assessments, training, your care plans, your audits, your MCN, your DOLs, your MAR charts, your risk assessments. Adam, you spoke about fire plans, your PEEPs. There are so many different things just from one thing that spin off. And then I was just kind of writing down the regulations, and I got to 5 different regulations that you could breach just from one thing. The only other thing I wrote down, which I think one thing that my organization does really well, which I think I would always take to another organization, is the training around transcribing medication. So you normally have your standard medication training, but for those staff that might be copying the information from a label over onto a paper-based MAR chart or even onto an electronic digital system, is that transcribing that medication and getting that kind of skill set kind of increased there. I definitely think it's kind of reduced some of the medication errors in our service. There has been another question come in from Donna around, should it have a separate care plan or just a risk assessment?
So you include it. So for emollient cream should have its own risk assessment, and I think of it as like a story as to where it impacts. So you've got your emollient risk assessment, that's going to be individual, but then it's because it's a flammable, it'll then go into your PEEPs. So it'll be in your PEEPs. Some organisations do have a separate care plan for, if you want to have it in a care plan, you can have it in a care plan. But so you need to make reference basically in the skin integrity care plan, or you might call it something different. But in the skin integrity care plan, you would reference that they are using a cream in there. So having a separate care plan for it is not a problem. It's not wrong, but you need to include it in your skin integrity care plan. Each organisation has a different policy or a different view of how separate risks need their own separate care plans. And if that's what they want to do things, that's absolutely fine. But you need to make sure that it is actually included and where it's being used, which is on the skin.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd be whacking it in my skin integrity care plan, say this person's on emollient cream, and then I'd probably make reference within the maintaining safe environment area to say, look, they're going to try and be able to maintain a safe environment. However, there is a fire risk here because of X, Y, and Z. And you've done, I mean, some systems are great. If you use person-centered software, for example, you can link direct care needs into care plans themselves. So you don't actually need to include it too much because it's already there in the associated care needs. So there are ways and means around it. I would just say try and make it as less labor intensive as possible, because the more care plans you've got, the more work there is to do, and the more chances are people aren't going to do it. And try not to reference it in too many care plans, because what will happen, and correct me if I'm wrong if you don't see this, Nick, but I do, something will change. The cream will change. They're no longer on emollients, but it's still in a fire care plan. It's still in maintaining care, safe environment care plan. It's still in this care plan. It's still in that care plan. But you've not updated those care plans because you've just gone straight to the skin integrity to change the creams that's been used. But you've now got 4 care plans that are out of date and not relevant anymore because that information's there. So it's just limiting the exposure so that you don't mess up. I mean, you don't miss stuff, because Reg 17, good governance, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing just worth noting is about contacting the GP and the pharmacist. There's quite often an alternative cream or ointment that can be prescribed that is less risky, especially if somebody is smoking.
Yeah. Right, we've given...
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say we've given creams 20 minutes, and I know you've got a huge
All
list.
I know. Do you know, in my head, I was thinking we could easily have done a whole show just on creams.
I know, right?
It does. You'll find as you go around, you'll see, like, you'll find as you start picking up topics, you'll be like, it goes this, goes this, goes that. And I think, like, it's really important that although we talk about bigger topics and that what people sort of, we need to look at the little stuff, because these are the bits that trip people up. These are the bits like you can have these most amazing quality assurance systems in place, and you're going around and looking in the men's room, but if no one's actually going around the bedrooms, then this is what the stuff that's being missed. So the next bit I was going to move on to was slings and I've done a blog on that this week. And again, it's like I have, when I go do a walk around, I'll get in the bedrooms and I have a look, and I will guarantee I will find a sling that's not had a Lola and it's not been done for some time. Now, these slings are usually on top of the wardrobe. They're either inside a wardrobe. I'll find them in a cupboard that's been used for maybe storing bed linens and someone's just shoved it in. It'll be in a random drawer. And I'll find it somewhere and it hasn't been lowered, and it's been missed. And then when I find that one, I'll then start checking other people that are sort of bed bound and maybe not using this equipment anymore, and I will find it. Now, the risk it happens is having this equipment stored somewhere and someone accidentally going to use it. So someone going, she's not working, she's not mobile anymore, we can't get the sling till next week. Oh, I know where one is, it's in the cupboard down there. And the next thing, they are now using a sling and you are breaching your health and safety. You've got no and and people think they're being helpful. So one of my solutions to that is a sling register. Now, your sling register can be as complicated as you want it to be, or it can be just really, really simple. And it's literally pulling all together, all the slings with all the serial numbers in, the sizes, the type of sling that they've actually got, the date they're lowered, and then everyone has a responsibility of updating that. Now, when you first pull together something like this together, you will discover that you will find slings that haven't been lowered. Now, every time I've worked in a service and I've put this in place, we have found them. So sometimes your maintenance man will have oversight mainly over because he organises the people coming into the service, he organises when the Lolas are coming in, he'll do all of that. And then all of a sudden, so he goes, yeah, get all the slings together and put them all together. And then you've got the person who's on a sitting sling and that gets washed in the evening most of the time, but they're sat in it all day, that gets missed. And it will happen. And it's making sure that it's the planning of it and putting something in place. And when you get your Lolas done, you hand over that list or something in front of you and go, this is everything we've got in the building. And they can tick off. And if they're missing something, we can go and find out where it is. And it's that. And it does happen when you're going into services and people are usually a little bit alarmed that they've discovered this issue.
The slings. I mean, slings are a nightmare in themselves. Do we use them for multiple people? Are we using them individually? If you're using them for multiple people, how do you guarantee about the infection prevention control? Are they named? Are they assessed correctly? Have you got proof that they're assessed correctly? The one thing I would say around Lolas, and this is a tip I learned, so lessons learned, which I'm sure we'll come on to when we talk about auditing and stuff, is don't get every piece of equipment in your building Lola'd and assessed on the same day, because heaven forbid something happens and they can't come and do that Lola assessment in time for you, or an issue happens, you are without any equipment. Split it into 2. If you're a big organization, split it into 3. Get it done 3 times a year so that you've always got equipment available should anything happen. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because you can get caught a cropper on that. And just for the regulations, Regulation 12, Regulation 15, Regulation 17, those are your main ones when we're talking about sling management as well. That goes for fire extinguishers. We never use them. Fingers crossed we never use them and we never touch them. It's really easy to forget when they're due their service. It's really easy to forget when they're needing to be looked at. Whack it onto your daily walk around. Whack it onto a monthly walk around. Make your maintenance team check them on a regular basis. Have a register of all the equipment and when it all needs doing. Otherwise, you are going to get you're going to get screwed. Really, really important. Not many people think about slings, Nicola, and that's a really, really good point. We have shared the link to Nicola's blog as well in the comments, so please do go check that out to find out a bit more about the sling register. Mark.
No, I was just sharing the links, but Nicola, did you talk about the register that you're also giving away the templates?
Oh yeah, it's on the blog. So the resource is on there. So it's a basic template for you to use. And obviously, like I said, you can make it as fancy as you want to. If you are a domiciliary service, obviously you'll have your staffing team give it support people who use the hoist or a sling. And it's good practice to have a record of when they're due, though it won't be their responsibility to get them lowered. It'll be the organisation who supplied them to. It's usually the NHS. But to keep a track of when everyone's due or when that item is due, to make sure that they're giving them a call, say, we know this is happening soon or this is due, have we got it booked in? Just so that bit you're doing your checks to make sure your safety of your staff and team as well for using that equipment for that person as well. So it can be used for that as well. So just keeping an eye on that, because you do have a duty to make sure your staffing and teams are safe. But when it goes back to the slings, when you were saying, Adam, there, so it does. I've had organisations where, lucky enough, they're being local to each other, and something happened, and they then had to then loan the stuff from the other home in order to get things through and to get things sorted. So now they've done something similar to yourself. They've split theirs up, so they do one half of the home on this side and one half of the home on different, and they swap it over, so each half is getting done separately.
And I would say that about
yeah.
just while we're talking about slings and equipment, because I know there's other things that you want to move on to, calibrations of equipment as well. You know, anyone who's got medical devices, be it syringe drivers, suction pumps, anything like that, you do need to get them medically calibrated, medically serviced. Your weighing chairs, your weighing equipment. It goes through it all. If you've got loads of them, don't get them all done at the same time, just in case. Because if you go and get them all serviced at the same time and 50% have issues on them, you're struggling then, because you've only got 50% of your stuff available. So just make sure that you're thinking smart about how you get your things serviced. I know sometimes it might be enticing because they'll do a bulk offer and do it nice and cheap for you. But yeah, if you've got them all in one room, like Nicola says, let's say you're getting all these slings done on one day, you know, you get them all together. What's people going to do? Like, how are they going to get their stuff done? Just do one sling for each person, and then they've already got one sling that they can use. Then do the other sling on the next time that you do your sling lollers. So, really interesting points. Nicola, what else do we need to be aware of?
So the other thing I do spot checks as do a look on is obviously it's PRN. So we hear a lot about PRN protocols, the use of PRN, make sure your PRN's suitable. So I'm going to not go into so much detail of that. So what I do is ask for, can I have a section of residents who are using PRN medication for constipation? And I get, so we've got to bear in mind, most everyone in digital age, I gather that information and I have a look. I have a look to see if there's a care plan, if it's included. So if it's PRN for constipation, for instance, I'll be then looking at their continence care plan. Does it say in there that they're using this medication or when to use it? Again, some people have a specific constipation care plan. If it's like a really issue that there's not just they're using it on a regular basis and as an additional PRN. Some people have 2 PRNs for this issue. So again, I look and see if it's referenced. Then I go and look at the bowel chart. So then I look at your bowel chart, and then I'm looking at your bowel chart. Then I want to see the bar chart at the same time, and I want to see when they're being used, so I can then see. And if you look at like reference PCS, I use that quite a lot, and I look at the last 28 days, and you can see the pattern of 28 days. You can see the pattern of that person of how often they use it. So I then see then the PRN protocol saying like after 2 days, 48 hours, if they've not been in the toilet, you then use this medication. Okay, great. Have a look. But then I can see a person's going 4 days, 5 days. I've seen a person go up to 7 or even 10 days about being logged and they've had the bowels opened. But then I've then gone back and looked at the bar chart, and there's no documentation that this person's had their medication. Or I find that they have had the medication, but it's 5 days or 4 days after they've not had the bowels opened for. And then I go back. And so then from that period of time, so your PRN protocol is you're not following it. So that's not, you're not safe. You're then not looking after that person's individual needs. They're already on weight loss, because then it'll take me to start looking at weight loss. And the care plan's not, no one's reading the care plan or following me through in the care plan because it says to contact the GP. It doesn't. You're not given clear direction of what to do. So if you've used this medication, it's still not being effective, what's going to happen, what is your protocol? So if you use the medication, it's still not worked, where are we going from this? Are we contacting the GP? Are the district nursing teams involved? Do you need to come and have an emina in place? Is their diet really on end of life? And that's why they're coming to approaching end of life care, palliative care. So their eating is really deteriorated. And that's why they're not actually going to the toilet on a regular basis, because their intake's really low. But your care plan's not telling me any of that information. And that actually might be happening right now. So these key things are just like looking, I'm literally looking at PRN and going back and seeing that. And that's then leads to me safeguarding. So I will raise this as I will say that they need to consider, if I'm faced with a scenario, that this could be a safeguarding issue, because that person's then be left for that period of time without having the right care or treatment, which is what's happened. Sometimes you'll find, if you go through the care notes for that day of the period of time, that actually it's been documented in the wrong place. And sometimes it's as simple as that, but no one's picked up on it. Not one person picked up on it. And these are key things that people are like, oh yeah, but it says here. So sometimes people are checking the care notes rather than the charts that are available. So when I go, I'm checking for the charts, because that's the stuff that CQC are going to be looking. That's where your PAMS inspector is going to be looking. And then, but if you're checking the care notes, it's not going to match up to the charts there for people to be looking at. So that's a really, really key bit, and it's quite often tripped up. And again, I said on PCS or other software, there's other softwares out there, you have an option to put a manager's note on. So it could be, for instance, Adam, you've been in, you've spotted this, you write a manager's note that have seen this, but have discovered that actually this and this has happened. So then it shows that you've got that oversight over it as well. So you've done something about it and you've logged in it. But we shouldn't be going we need everything to be matching when that medication's been given. And that can be included in your resident of the day, your care plan audit, your operation. It could be something that you check on a regular basis to tie this up, and you only need to check maybe 2 people to see if this pattern's actually following through.
Yeah, I mean, for our services, we include it in a daily walk around. So, it says check a selection of supplementary records. Are they all updated? There's all the information there. And that could be oral care. It could be bowel care. It could be nutrition. And in one of our services, and we're looking at rolling this out to the rest of them, is we now do a daily care check. We call it an audit, but it's just a daily care check where they go in, the seniors and the nurses, and they check every single person every single day. Have they had this? Have they had that? Is there a gap here? Why is there a gap there? What we're going to do about it? How are we going to address it? They bring it to the flash meetings. It goes in the resident of the day. And it's all about that oversight. It's wonderful having these digital care planning softwares now, but the information that is available to you, if you do nothing with it, you're going to fail Reg 17, because there's no excuse anymore.
No. And the digital age is really, I think it's it makes our lives really a lot easier, but also you can't hide. You cannot hide if something's gone wrong. You can't hide. And I think it's an honest way as well, but it's also, I always say, for instance, if you've got somebody who needs, supporting with repositioning, and the skin's really vulnerable, but there's been an incident in your home. So I say to them, write a late note, the repositioning was late due to room number had a serious incident, and that's all you need to do, because the priority. So yes, the reposition of that person has been delayed by 45 minutes. Yes, the skin's at risk, but actually the priority at the moment, they were safe and someone else wasn't. So having that conversation with the staff and saying, right, if you're going to be late and it's happened because something's happened, then it's late because something's happened. Be honest about it. Say it's happened. It's fine. We are human. And we are working with humans. So mistakes are going to happen. I'm not perfect. I will, nobody here is perfect. We all make mistakes. Probably most stuff we know is because of mistakes. Apart from Adam. And most stuff, my knowledge, have is either learned through other people's mistakes or things I've learned along the way, or courses and things like that. And it's about sharing, and channels like yourself are trying to learn things. So, and it's just being honest. I think that's really, to me, it's really key. Okay, we've missed this. How do we make sure we don't do it? And this is where consultancy does come in. We having someone coming in, just doing that quick, that check over to see actually what can we do to get things better? What can we do? We weren't aware, we never thought. I think I've seen someone else mentioned it on on LinkedIn, and so I'm sorry if I'm using your quote, but they said nothing's quite like having your mother come to visit your house and she hasn't been for a while, because all of a sudden you start noticing areas of your home that maybe, oh, I should have painted that, needs doing this, needs skirtables need doing. And I think it's similar when somebody has someone coming into your home to come and check how everything is. It's a bit like, I never noticed that before. I walked past that every day and I've never noticed that had been an issue. And just a fresh pair of eyes.
Yeah, and if you've got multiple services, utilize managers from different sites to come into different homes. Peer review each other in a nice way, but peer review each other, because you're only wanting to learn from each other. There was something that I wanted to mention then, and it's completely escaped me. No, I'm having a blank moment, so I'm going to hand over to Mark.
Yeah, no.
So there's nothing on PRN.
Go, Nicola.
There's another thing on PRN. It was about moods. That was the other thing I picked up on as well. So when I'm doing, if PRN's being used for the stabilisation of mood, it's chemical harsh. And I think it's really important that your staff understand they are giving a medication to somebody to change their behaviour. And that is a big responsibility. So I will then check to see if I will going to go and look, and if that person's got a personal behaviour support plan. If some people call it something different, that's fine. But I'll be looking to see what do they have in place? What's our first port of call? So what we're doing, distracting, we're taking them to a different room. We are doing all these different things to try and distract this person and to reassure them and to, reassure them in the best way we can reassure them before that medication was given at the very last resort. And half the time, I'll say 75% of the time, I will find that these care plans are not in place and there is no evidence that distraction techniques have been used. Now, most when I can see it has been used, like the example of that meal, that lunch, when I've seen people engaging really well. And I believe more than likely it has been used, but I can't, on paper, from what I'm seeing, it hasn't. And there's a responsibility of the nurses and any senior care who's handing out that medication. They need to know, or what has been documented, have all options been done. I said, because it can be simple. I'll give an example the other day. And so the previous example is, if you have certain teams working on certain days, and this every day, this person's leading the shift, and a staff member's coming to them on a regular basis and, Sandra, like, I've tried this, I've tried that, she needs the medication. Now, that same team, this staff member's hand this medication out is new. It's very new to the team. He's only been there 3 months, but only worked with this person consistently. All of a sudden, there's an issue. There's an investigation the staff member's been. Every time the senior's on shift, senior or nurse is on shift, he hands out a PRN medication nearly every single time she's on shift. But actually, what she's doing, she's listening to the staff member who's telling her to give her that medication because it's needed and they tried this and this. They've not documented any of that behaviour. Who's the one who's going to get into trouble? Who's the one who's potentially going to lose the pin for overstated medication for residents? And it's going to be the person who's administrating it. And I think it's really, really important that people start looking at that role and their responsibility in handing out that medication and the reason they're giving it, and that they can evidence that they have be used the least restrictive method, because it can occur.
And then again, you pull on your thread. I'm going to look at training. Have your team actually received any training alongside the RRN framework, so the reduction of restraint network? Are they doing PBS training? Are they doing distraction training? Are they looking at de-escalation? Are they looking at identifying triggers? I'm going to look at the ABC charts. You're telling me you've given this person lorazepam, but where's the ABC chart to back up the behaviors? Where was the antecedent? Where have we looked at the environment and the triggers prior to understand what's actually happened? If there is an ABC chart there and I see that actually this person was in a living room that was really, really loud and noisy and bright, and that's caused an episode and that's why they've been given medication, I'm going to look at the care plan. The care plan clearly states in the behavior care plan that loud, bright environments trigger them for behaviors. So why have you put them in an environment that's going to trigger their behavior and then medicated them to sort of bring them down, when really what you should have done is not put them in that environment in the first place? There's all of those things that you're gonna unpick.
It's like one thing I find really frustrating as my thing as well. And some people disagree with me, and it's absolutely fine. But I don't agree. We're then giving sedative medication, sometimes long daily, so it's not PRN, on a regular basis, and medication to calm somebody to maintain calm throughout the day because of different behaviours they may display. We've got PRN. But every day we are stimulating them with caffeine and other stimulating factors. So then we're giving them caffeine, tea, coffee all day long. Then all of a sudden, oh, come 5 o'clock, this is massive trigger, and the behaviours that we now have to give them. Well, actually, what can we do to help stimulate this environment? So I'm not saying everybody who should be on decaf coffee or decaf tea, but I think it's something you need to start considering. If you need to start giving a sedative to somebody to start changing their behaviours, what other natural ways can we do to reduce that? And I think sometimes some people disagree. It's like, oh, they want caffeine in the tea, should be able to have caffeine in the tea. So that's absolutely fine. But also, but you're going to sedate somebody, either what's the least restrictive? So they're still getting the tea, but you're not giving them the medication. And it's just a different way of, of dealing with things. And I think it's really sometimes it's that out of box thinking of looking, and it's really important.
Don't even get me started. I'm going to hand over to Mark in a minute because I'm talking quite a bit. And this is your show, but don't get me started on caffeine because, people, they're falling lots. They're falling a lot. They're falling a lot. Right. Okay. What time are they falling of the day? Oh, I'm going to have to look at this. Well, really, you should be doing an audit on your falls to figure out themes and trends, but let's go with this. And, they'll find out that they're falling trying to get to the toilet because they're rushing to the toilet. Okay. What's their drink of choice? Either tea or coffee. Are you giving them caffeine free? Have you given them the option of caffeine free? No. Why? Well, caffeine's a diuretic and it's going to make you need to wee more. And it stops you from having that sensation. You just want to go all the time. Oh my God. Try swapping to caffeine free because you're going to reduce the sort of urgency to get to the toilet, which hopefully would reduce your falls as well. You can all but try. It's that out of the box thinking, which I'm not saying is going to get you outstandings, but if you can demonstrate the work that you've done to sort of impact someone's health positively by reducing restraint, by reducing medication, by reducing intervention, by promoting independence, you're going to get some good stars because people are going to enjoy that. The people are going to like that. And at the end of the day, warm, fuzzy feeling because you're doing what's right.
Yeah.
Mark, sorry.
No, that's okay. I think, you both touched on a really good point around caffeine, and there's a number of studies around caffeine. I'll find an article and share it into the
osteoporosis, by the way. Coffee gives you brittle bones. So look into that sort of, try and provide people. I think one of the actual quality statements is, are you providing people with information about their health? Are they able to access information about their health? Are they supported to manage their health effectively and safely? And all of this sort of stuff is part of that. Thinking about what their sort of health conditions are, looking at the diet and going, well, look, just FYI, this is your diet, this is your condition, this is the contraindication, and this is what it's going to do potentially. Should we try something else because it's going to benefit you? It's around meeting their needs holistically. Sorry, Mark.
No, you're okay. I think just touching on that, there's also studies around milk and whether you should give them red top, blue top, green top, gold top. And actually, interestingly, it's not kind of what you fit. But I'll find some links and I'll share them. I think just listening to you there talking about kind of behavioural support plans, I think positive behavioural support plans are obviously something that are so common in learning disability services, but not with older people.
No.
I will share a link. Log My Care did a really good PBS playbook that talks around the key components, tools and strategies, creating an environment to reduce kind of behaviours that challenge. And it was written with Giuseppe Di Martino, who's a commissioner at Slough Borough Council that's just got a fascinating kind of insight into the world of learning disabilities and people living with autism. So I'll share those because if you don't have PBS plans, there's a really great support tool for that. I think I was just writing down, listening to you around PRNs. I think the biggest thing for me is around the frequency of how often they're given before it becomes an actual everyday medication. So you need to be monitoring that. I think
Sorry, just on that, Mark, as well, is being clear in your policy how often you review PRNs. So just FYI, review them monthly because just reviewing monthly makes life so much easier. Make sure you've reviewed them monthly. And if you've reviewed them monthly, on the back of that PRN where it says PRN care plan or PRN protocol reviewed, no changes needed. Why are no changes needed? How many times did they have that PRN medication throughout the month? How many times was that PRN medication successful? How many times was it unsuccessful? All of that information is needed so that you can justify why that review's been there and put down a reason why and put down an observed impact and outcome. This is basic, PRNs 101. Sorry, Mark.
No, that's okay. I was going to say about the secondary record keeping around what the outcome was, because I think so often that is missed. And I know when I used to do audits in the care homes, it was always that wasn't filled in by somebody that would always flag. I think just in terms of PRNs as well, is if you're noticing somebody's taking it, 10 times in the month, and I'm only using 10 because I'm on migraine PRN medication. any more than 10 has been proven to give you more migraines. So actually, my maximum dose per month, even though it's a PRN, I shouldn't go over 10. So, I don't think, I definitely wouldn't have known that unless I was on it. So I definitely think go back to the GP and just talk about whether there is any secondary just from, and how many per month is going to cause that. Because it's the same with paracetamol. If you take that every day, actually, it's more likely to induce some of that pain that you're kind of taking it for. What else did I write down? Around capacity and consent, around actually, does the person need it? Actually, if they've got capacity, are you asking them? I think, obviously oversee reablement services, so we don't get involved too much with people's medication. But the amount of times that people are prescribed with so much medication coming out of hospital, and obviously they're the default pathway into our service. Actually, so many people are like, well, I've never taken this before. I've never had that before. Well, actually, do you need it? And then we spend a lot of time going back and forth with pharmacies and doctors. So just from that point of view, and I think from a good governance point of view, and I think we touched on it, was just around lessons learned. I think you might be finding there's errors, and you might be finding that there's gaps in record keeping, but actually if you can do some really good lesson learned documentation, share it into your team meetings, actually a CQC inspector will see, actually you've identified it, but actually this is what you're doing to kind of upskill and proactively inform your team of how to prevent it going forward. And if there has been a side impact, whether somebody's gone, bring that into the lessons learned. The only thing I did also write down, going back to caffeine studies, is if you're going to put it all over social media, just be careful, because I know when the studies came out, there was a lot of backlash around, oh, we're living in a nanny state, or the care home just wants to control them, or what they want is they don't have enough staff, they just don't want to take them to the toilet. So just be very careful if you do go for a caffeine-free option of what you put on your socials, because it could have a negative impact in terms of publicity for your service.
It's weighing up the options, like the reason why. So it's individual based on how it is. My next thing was about safeguarding and lesson learned. So was the other things I was going to touch on afterwards. If you all right to go, we were right to start with that.
Yeah, let's
go on to just carry on with that. So one of the things when I look for, like I said, I spoke earlier on about each local authority will have different safeguarding. So one of the things I'll ask to see is, like, can I see a safeguarding folder? Sometimes it's digital, sometimes. Then I ask to see the investigations. And that's when things get a bit, what? As I said, safeguarding investigations, can I see them? And I'm not expecting reams and reams for every single safeguarding. So if you've got a person who's walked across the room, a safeguard's been raised because they've fallen, they've broken the hip, they've had some sort of injury, massive injury, and then your local authority is saying that's a safeguard, and so you've raised it as a safeguard. That investigation would be really simple. The fact that they had no history of falls, they weren't a high falls risk, they weren't using any aids, they weren't on any medication that caused dizziness. They literally got out of bed, walked to the toilet, and fell. It happened. So that investigation is very, very slim, like very small. It's not really, it's not anything. And is there any lessons learned for that? Well, actually, there's nothing anyone could have done. No one could predict it. They fell, like they got up and walked and fell, and that's absolutely fine. But when I go and ask, is there any investigations? Like, oh, we had a really serious one. I think it was back in March. I've got that one. So none of the investigations are being done. So if none of the investigations are being done, then no lessons learned are being done. So when I ask them, like, oh, actually lessons learned have been done, we share it like every 6 months. Like, no. And sometimes it's getting that concept of what actually is a lessons learned. So a lesson learned doesn't actually have to come from a safeguard. It can actually come from a near miss. It can come from a complaint. It can come from a whistle blowing. It can come audit. From yes, and it can come from anywhere. And in doing that investigation, it's like showing like how you've come to that conclusion. So one big thing's in auditing, and when you do work with me, one of the things is like, where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? How have you got to this point? So if you're doing an investigation, I want to know, how did you get to that point? How do you decide that this is not a safeguard? And how do you decide that this wasn't that? Because what should you look at? So I have a very simple template for investigations, and literally it lists what you've looked at. So if you looked at care notes, what date should you look for? If you looked at body maps, what date should you look at? And it's breaking it down, and it's just that simple. So then if you ever ask 2 years later about that incident, all your information's on there. You're going to remember it because it's, people know where to check. If you're not going to remember, I don't know what I had for tea 2 years ago. So how the hell are you going to remember what happened to this incident when it happens regularly in the care service sometimes? So it's really important. And lessons learned is can be something very simple, as in, for instance, when a new staff member comes in, we've missed a key point of the induction, like we didn't show the staff member to make sure this internal door should be locked and it was left open. No one got out of the building, but it could be that. It could be as simple as that you've now changed your induction for that, or it could be something a lot more serious. Now, and that's the key bit, and how you're sharing it. So some people save it up to the staff meeting. I suggest that you share it as soon as possible. So you have some people have a digital handover, or they have a lessons learned folder or digital lessons learned folder, but make it accessible for your staff. So then you share it at the handover, so the staff have got access to it. Then when you have your staff meeting, then you share it again in there. So it's constantly being shared. So we do work with people sometimes who can be truth. What's the word I'm looking for? You can work with people sometimes who may deny all knowledge of, don't know anything about safeguarding and don't know anything about anything, that you've never done any training, never done anything. So when you face those scenarios, by making sure it's shared on every handover and then shared at your staff meetings, you're then sharing them. Well, actually, I don't know how you don't know, because I share it and all these different things. So then you're protecting yourself and you're evidencing of how you're trying to educate your staff and team as well. So a lesson learned is not just for your senior team either, it's actually for everybody, and everyone should be involved, including like your domestic teams, your cooks, your kitchen. This should be included. It's a whole home.
The reason I'm smiling is my manager from one of my homes, who is on leave at the minute, joins us regularly on a Tuesday, and she's put, "This is the beauty of Radar. It reminds you, and lessons learned are on there and shared at all meetings." I was smiling to myself when you were talking, because we use the Radar governance system in our services, and it's fab because you build your investigations into there digitally, and you put your workflows in so stuff can't get missed. So for our investigations is, have you interviewed anyone or spoken to anyone about this investigation? Yes, upload statements here. Have you found any evidence for this investigation? Yes, upload evidence here. So that actually you've got that running tally. It's all stored digitally, and should you need to download it in the future, you can just access it all, print it off you go. Then there's the learning outcomes. There's a whole learning outcome step. What did we do well? What didn't go so well? What's the impact been? Because I think sometimes we forget about impact around what's actually happened. How has this impacted someone? What has been the sort of detriment to this person or to people or to the service by us not following protocol, by us not following policy, by us not following procedure? And then if you're a larger organization with multiple different sites, multiple different services, how are you sharing that learning across that group as well? How are managers learning from each other to go, well, actually, this happened to us. I don't want it happening to you. So get cracking, go and have a look at that stuff. That's when you adapt your audits. That's when you start going, well, this has happened here, so I'm going to apply it to this audit here just to see if I need to pick it up in my services, to see if it's not being picked up already. Learning outcomes, lessons. It's your first quality statement, for crying out loud. It is the first quality statement under SAFE.
It's the interpretation. So sometimes if you've not a small organization, so you've got to bear in mind, I work for really small people who maybe are still on paper, and sometimes I work for bigger organizations, and sometimes they're still on paper. So sometimes it's what that person's understanding of lessons learned. So you've got channels like ours as the education bits, like this is what it is, like this lessons. Sometimes I've seen lessons learned and they'll be beautifully done. Oh, they're absolutely fantastic. The detail is absolutely brilliant, but they're in a folder in the manager's office, and there's no signature. There's nothing telling me that the staff know anything or how this is being shared. And I'm like, these are brilliant, but how do your staff team know about them? Or they get printed off the print and they get put there. Well, they're no good there. And actually, the detail's really good. But how does the staff team know about that? How can you evidence me that that's been shared? How will they see it? Or might be in staff meeting minutes. Okay, I look at the staff meeting minutes, and it's literally a one-way conversation where the person's just speaking directly to staff, and they go, discuss lessons learned. That's it. So all these beautiful investigations on these lovely lessons learned, there's no detail, there's no staff opinion, there's no nothing. And then one thing I sort of touch on this bit as well, you need to be careful if you're only documenting a one-way conversation and you're trying to make changes in a service, and your staffing team get inspected, and your staffing team turn around and say, I can't speak up. As we speak in our staff meeting, but they never listen. And then your staff meeting minutes are just a one-way conversation of you talking to them, and all of a sudden something else gets said, but the supervisions they have is also a one-way talking system. Then it's more than likely there's a culture here and it's been run by, and that might not be the case, but you're not doing anything to support yourself. And I come across a lot where staff, the managers might say to me, well, the staff don't say anything, they don't engage, they don't do this. And I was like, well, ask the questions. Like, we notice you're not engaging in our meetings. Like, what can I do? How can I engage you more in these meetings? Like, for more feedback, what's the best way for me to do it? And listen to and write down, I spoke to this person, spoke to that, what you've tried to do. So it shows you consistently trying to evidence those people. So there's other bits as we're checking with lessons learned, but there's other bits as well in order as a management and organisation to protect yourselves as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That was hard,
Mark,
right?
I know.
I'll be quick, and then we'll come back for one question that I've got. I think the only thing for me is around partnership working when it comes to safeguarding. Know who your local safeguarding lead is, because so helpful just being able to pick up the phone or drop them an email to talk through something. I think even if something, and Nicola, you spoke about it earlier in terms of different local authorities have different benchmarks of what is classed as abuse or what they will investigate, what they won't investigate. I think regardless of whether it's picked up as under the section to be investigated, is if it's not, is still do an internal investigation to look at what went wrong, where you can improve. Because I think sometimes we're very quick to think, oh God, it hasn't been processed, you tick that one off the list, but actually there could be something really good internally that you could learn from it. I think the only other thing is around getting the staff, the people you support, families involved in those lessons learned. I think one of the biggest powerful things we did, and we don't do it every team meeting, it becomes draining and boring in the end, but is around allegations of abuse. And we all have them against staff from people that we support or from families, but actually get somebody that's been through that to come and talk to your staff team about how that felt, because actually it provokes the conversation of, oh, actually, if that was me, how would I cope with it? Also, how can we prevent that from happening to us all as a staff team? What can we do better? Is it documentation? Is it, going in with 2 staff for this particular individual? You will learn so much more from the staff talking than you will just you talking about a piece of paper. And I say all the same, I can go and talk at a team meeting, but I'm not there delivering the care. I'm not hands-on. I'm not operational every day. You guys are, and you're going to give me a lot more information and insight than I ever will get, just because I'm so far removed from it. So yeah, definitely involve the people that you support, especially if you've got families where they might have moved somebody into your care service because of abuse in another service. Actually get those families to come in and talk about the impact it had on them, because I think sometimes that hits home more around, oh, this is why we need to safeguard somebody, as opposed to that generic e-learning or face-to-face training that we all do and hasn't changed for decades. But yeah,
I think I find when I give live examples to staff and the staff, like of what could happen and potentials what could happen, the people seem to understand a lot more. They seem to get it a lot more. Like I was in so we're going to go back to Cream, sorry. So there was supporting a service and staff were, so they've had this meeting. I could see the meetings, they could see the tried. So I went and joined the meeting and I said, right, so we're all documented. I've seen the meetings, that we've documented that if we know these creams need to be applied. I can see that we've been chasing you up to have these creams applied and we've asked for solutions from you and no one's given solutions. So this is a solution I'm going to give you. I said, so room, whichever, I think I said at the time, said has creams and it's been missed. It's been applied probably 4 times a week and should be on twice a day, 7 days a week, and it's not been done. I said, she now has a fall. She has a fall and she ends up with a pressure sore. She has a fall, she goes to hospital, she ends up with a pressure sore in 4 hours to hospital. No one's documenting that she's had this cream on. We've not documented that we've been applying the cream that's been prescribed to her that should be given every 2 hours. She now gets this pressure sore. She now gets sepsis. She dies of sepsis because there's pressure wound and it comes back to the care home. It comes back to the care home because we had the cream that we'd not been applying to her. And you also not documented a skin integrity in between all of this. So we've got no evidence to say that pressure wound wasn't there before she fell. Can't blame it on the hospital. Now you've got to stand up in court for 2 hours and explain to them, and all you get is a yes and no answer in front of the coroners explaining why you did not did you know that you need to put that cream on that resident? You're going to answer yes. I said, because we've got the minutes, managed to got the minutes of the meeting telling you and supporting you on how to do this to your job. So you're purposely endangering the residents, because that's the only solution I can see right here. Was that met not very nice? The staff team absolutely taken aback. Yes, they were. Was it a little bit frightening when they did? But afterwards, they come back and were like, I didn't realise I could escalate that far. I said, that's your worst case scenario, and that's it could potentially be there. So if you're not doing, we're evidencing what we're doing to support you to do your role. I said, but if you're purposely not doing it and there's no reason for you not to be doing it, what other reason have we got other than you purposely don't want to look after this individual properly? I said, and that's where it boils down. Sometimes having these sort of frank conversations of what potentially could happen helps.
Yeah, and we do the exact same thing. I mean, babes, I've been in coroners too many times than I'd care to admit, and they are. I mean, not for stuff that's been under my watch. It's stuff I've inherited, but they are horrible scenarios, and that's really where, especially if you're not used to doing learning outcomes and you're not used to doing lessons learned, and you end up in coroners, you're going to need to get good at it, because that's how you're going to prevent your Reg 28s. You're going to show how you've learned from this incident, what you've implemented, and how your service is improving. Now, Christopher Munt's come into the chat and said, lessons learned as a response to failure in service delivery is readily given. Yet the reality is that too often the same issue is identified in the same service further down the line. And this is so true, because a lot of people will do a learning outcome, but then won't monitor it. And then won't monitor the impact of that learning. They won't monitor the solution put in place. And that goes the same for auditing. So you're doing a daily walk around, great, fabulous governance, woohoo, Reg 17. And on your daily walk around, you notice that the corridors are blocked. There's stuff in the corridors which is preventing safe fire evacuation. You do it the next day and you pick up the same thing. You do it the next day and you pick up the same thing. You do it the next day and you pick up the same thing. You do it the next day and you pick up the same thing. So what we've got is great. You're doing an audit, fabulous, and you're doing it consistently, wonderful. You're doing nothing with what you're picking up on it, though. So basically what you're telling me is you're doing an audit and then doing nothing about it. So you're failing Reg 17. You may think you're passing Reg 17, good governance, because you've done an audit and you're doing it regularly, but you're doing nothing with the stuff that you're finding. So you can't show that you're improving your service, which is the whole point of doing an audit, is to identify areas of risk, precursors to massive risks, and areas of improvement so that you can better your service. So all you're doing at the moment is a tick box exercise by going, this is what we found 17 days in a row, and we've done nothing about it.
Well, going back to the gentleman's thing on there, one of the things I have the service improvement plan. So a lot of people like to, Christopher, so a lot of people like to put on actions being done and take it off. I like to leave it on for 3 months, at least 3 months, to make sure it's embedded into the service. So you should never take an action off, especially as a change. You added a new audit, put new audits in place, you change your processes. Nothing really should be taken off your action plan until 3 months. You should have it. Yes, it's completed, but we've got now 3 months of embedding checks to make sure it actually is being embedded. And sometimes you get to month 2 and you've actually gone back and you're like, actually, no, we're starting again. We're going back down, resetting the action, and we're going to do it again. And then I put it back in. And it's just to get it's getting out of the habit. And that's it, is developing a new habit. And that's really important for people to sort of, because people will slip back to old ways if no one's keeping an eye on it. And then sometimes is where the extra support can sort of come back into again, especially some organisations where you're the registered manager and the nominated person. And the nominated person role is to support the manager and sort of manage that and to help, is to be there for, to monitor, to see what's going on. But if you're both those people, you've got no one managing you. And sometimes having that external support to come in to support you on a regular basis will help with that as well, for that oversight to see what's happening.
Yeah, and log in your actions, your validation checks. This action has been monitored as being complete because I have checked X, Y, and Z. I've uploaded copies of X, Y, and Z so you can see that this action is completed. Then we use digital actions on Radar, and what we tend to do now is when an action's complete, we then set a new deadline for that action. Instead of closing it down, we'll say, right, review in 2 weeks' time to check for embedding. Review in 2 weeks' time to check for embedding. Review in 2 weeks' time to check for embedding. Because then it reminds us, because it'll tell us that it's pending. But also, we're not closing it down. We've got evidence, because every 2 weeks we're adding an update onto it to say that we've updated it, we've checked, and yeah, it's working great, or no, it's not working so good at the minute. It's a really fabulous point that you bring up there, Nicola. Mark, again, I'm so sorry. You wanted to ask a question.
No. Well, I think Nicola's really just touched on it. It was around the importance of having somebody to come in and just spot check, and I was going to nicely segue into Nicola just to close us off talking about kind of the 24-hour spot check she does, because I think regardless of whether you've got somebody above you or not, like my company is a large organization. We have a whole quality team, but sometimes just somebody that doesn't know any of the policies, doesn't know any of the processes, doesn't know any of the kind of history of the organization, the staff team, can just be so refreshing to come in. It's just a different set of eyes, difference of opinion, thought provoking. But yeah, Nicola, just talk to us quickly before we end the show, just around your kind of 24-hour spot checks, what people could expect.
So for me, what I've launched recently is to do basically it's a 1-day check. So basically, go into a service. So each check will be to look at the subjects that we had on, say, but it's a snapshot. So a snapshot, I'm not going to be able to see everything. Like CQC, or you have a mock inspection, they've got time. Mine is to go in and it's looking at that thread. So I'll have certain focuses on this one particular visit, and then the second visit, if you'd like another second visit, we'll look at different focuses. So, and they can be once every 3 months, or just a one-off to see. And at the end of the day, you'll get a quick report summary of what happens and what actions need to be put into place and where I feel like there's breaches. But throughout the day, I give you feedback. So I will take you with me and I'll show you, this is the reasons for that, this is the reasons for that. So I always like to give an explanation as to like why we're breaching here and what we can put into place to support that and where they can look to get that extra information. Because sometimes the information is free, sometimes the tools can be somewhere else. And people don't need they can go and get it for free. They just need someone to show them where the pathway to go. And that's all I wanted. And I think that sometimes, and then you just want someone to come back again and check that everything's okay. But like the idea of the visits is just to come in and have a quick snapshot and an overview of where you actually are at that moment in time.
Absolutely fab, and I think people should take you up on that offer, because I think it's a great approach. A great approach, especially if you're a service whose audits always show 100%. It's definitely something you should be considering. It's something that I'm trying to embed with team members and across the sector is audits shouldn't be 100% all the time. Like you should be finding stuff. There's always stuff to find. There's always an issue to find. I'm not saying go and be super harsh on your service, but it's probably going to be best off being super harsh yourself and then CQC coming in and only picking up minor things. But if you are blinkered, if you are blinded to all of this, that 24-hour check that Nicola offers, I think, is a great first step into every step of care you're going to take moving forward.
Very good. I'm going to have to pay for you for that.
No, you know. No, it's free. I'll let you off.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Nicola. This has been a very, 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 very great show. Loads of good conversation. Again, pulling on a thread, we could have covered a multitude of topics tonight, and I do think you'll need to come back to cover a couple more of these.
Well, I did make a list of things I wanted to try and do as a quick snapshot, and I think we only went up to, I think you touched on environment, but where did we go? So I think we've covered 5 things, and I've literally got 12 of what I'd check on a day. So yeah, right. So we didn't.
Well, we're gonna have to get you back, Nicola, and we're gonna have to do a follow up on this. Now, I do know we don't have a show for the next couple of weeks coming up. Mark is slinging himself on holiday. He's off living his best life. However, Nicola, if you are available, it might be something that we can look at putting in over the next 2 weeks to do an extra show at some point. If you don't mind, just the solo company of myself.
That's good.
We've got in the comments, Emily Wilson in the comments said, yes, please bring her back. I'm going to have to now. Nicola.
Thank you, Emily.
You can come back for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. We have no issue. I think a lot of this stuff is what managers want to hear, what managers need to hear. And it's the reason why next year at the Care and View, we're going back to basics. Next year, all of our shows are going to be basic skills and knowledge that you need as managers, as directors, as service providers to succeed in what you are doing. So whilst we focused a lot on AI and other topics this year, we may still bring AI into those topics, but in a basic way, which is going to apply to your day-to-day work. And these are the conversations that we want to have. So Nicola will most likely have you back in the new year, as well as in the next couple of weeks, to look at some of this more basic knowledge that people need to understand, even if it's around the regulations.
Yeah, we could do a regulation quiz.
Oh, I love doing regulation quizzes. I love it. I usually do it on events, and people will be like, "Oh, I don't like the CQC because they do this and they do that and they do this," and I'm like, "Okay, what's regulation 18?" And they go, 12 and 17. They never get 12 and 17, and they're the most breached regulations across health and social care. And it's really, really important that we do get to know the regs. The framework may be changing in the near future, but the regs, unless it goes through Parliament and bills are passed, the regs won't change. The regs are what the regs are.
Never changed.
I mean, we get the additional ones like 9A around visiting now, but that's an addition. It's not really a change to the regs. So really do get to know the regs. Fabulous night. We'll keep you posted on socials. Oh, Mark's going on holiday, so I might have to do some social media work.
I can do them. Well, if Nicola lets me know in the next few days, I can do them. I don't go till Monday. I can do them at the airport. I don't have a
that's fab. Well, either next week or the week after, Nicola hopefully will be back, and we will do a part 2 of tonight's show. So please do keep an eye out on our socials. Give us a follow if you don't already. Nicola, absolutely amazing to have you on tonight. I just love catching up with you anyway. You're an old bestie now in social care. And Mark, absolutely fabulous. Where are you going, Mark? Do you want to divulge?
Yeah, I'm off to Gran Canaria. So, yeah,
He'll be
a couple of weeks in the sunshine.
He's going to be in Gran Canaria, and there's going to be paparazzi there, and we'll see in the Caring Times like next week. Mark and his like budgie smugglers, like, no, don't take a photo of me.
Definitely won't be any budgie smugglers.
Look, absolutely fabulous. Everyone, please do take care. Keep an eye on our socials. We will do a part 2 to tonight's show. The love is pouring in for you tonight, Nicola, which I think is well deserved. Absolutely well deserved. So yeah. Everyone, take care, stay safe, and we will see you potentially next week or the week after. Good night.
See you later. All right, bye.